Hello, and welcome to Frog in Hands, Site-Specific Performance Series. In this first episode, we will be talking about general information about site-specific works, like what it is and what we can possibly do with it. In episode 2, we will be discussing site-inspired movement. In episode 3, we will be talking about choosing a site. In episode 4, we'll be talking about audience and sightlines. And in our last episode, episode 5, we'll be talking about putting it all together. And we'll be taking a case study look at Frog in Hands, Stories in the Woods production. So, with that said, let's get to it.
So, what is site-specific performance? Site-specific performance in a broad sense is performance that happens outside of a traditional theater venue. However, that definition really doesn't do the art form justice. We've spoken to some wonderful artists and site-specific creators and asked them how they would define site-specific work, and this is what they had to say.
And it truly was site specific in that it could not have taken place anywhere else.
So the site-specific aspect of it means that we're always looking at space and how it has a role in the work, and that it is a kind of character in the process and in the performance. Where we do our work is going to have an influence on how it's experienced and the kind of stories that can be told.
Like, how can I put this story in this space? Something has to change. The story can't remain the same.
That tells us a lot about what site-specific work is and what site-specific work can be. And as you can see, the term site-specific encompasses a number of different ways of working, which is part of what is so exciting about site-specific performance.
There are definitely different types of site-specific dance, but regardless of if it is a narrative and story-based form or something more abstract, the influence and the exploration of the site is always a factor that is super exciting to me. It can't just remain the same as it would on stage. It has to become different.
Site-specific work, one of the things I love is you can play with depth and you can have things happen very, very far away. And it's like this incredible kind of also panoramic experience. So is the audience in the frame, or are they the camera looking out and they're the lens?
Through site-specific performance, we can often create a more personal experience and offer audiences a different kind of intimacy than is available in a traditional theater setting. And this can often spark strong emotions. After all, a haunted house could be considered a site-specific performance because they've carefully crafted this immersive promenade that's designed to spark fear through the strategic use of props and location and lighting and sound and performers.
We haven't discussed what types of site-specific performance exist, though, because in a world with so many different places and spaces, there are just as many ways to approach the work. For instance, we've got in a promenade-style performance, the audience is led along a predetermined trajectory by a performer or a member of the company putting on the work. This means the audience will experience the performance in a particular order through a series of connected locations, though they can still look around however they wish. In an immersive performance, the audience is let loose in a space and allowed to explore it however they wish. This means that each audience member will have their own unique experience, but it does mean that they will not get to experience the entirety of the production. You will need to put a lot of thought into every aspect of the production in order to ensure that what each audience member is experiencing is just as engaging as what is happening elsewhere. Site-sensitive work most often arises from the location in which it is set. It often utilizes a space's history in telling a larger message. This type of work can often have a larger impact on your audience as they reflect upon the space's history and its impact on the piece and the larger world around them. This is a particular type of performance wherein the audience is involved in the creation of the story itself. They are usually asked for input of some kind, which then determines the next steps for the performance, either improvised or scripted. This particular type of show can also be done in a traditional space, but has a lot of potential when done in a non-traditional space. This one is all about using a single location, putting your audience in specific places and letting them watch from there. This one is the most similar to a traditional performance space in that it can easily include designated seating. This view can be from a single location, in the round, or any other seating combination.
You may notice that theater and dance begin to blur when we talk about site-specific dance and more narrative-based things. So if you're a little bit more interested in what theater dance could be, go check out the links below and check out Frog in Hand's other series on dance theater.
Regardless of the type of performance we choose, as mentioned by our experts before, it is important that our space itself has a role to play in the production. This is where the great potential of site-specific work comes from. When it comes to making site-specific work, there are a lot of opportunities and challenges to take into consideration, depending on where you are working and what your intentions are for the piece you intend to create. Depending on where your work will be taking place, you will likely have to look into either getting a permit from official sources or permission from the owners of a space in order to use it for your performances. We will look into this more in episode 3. Because this kind of work can take place anywhere, there are many locations both indoors and outdoors for you to experiment with, each with their own set of circumstances. While it is easier to control for variables in an indoor setting, there is often a great impact on the human psyche and an opportunity for much grander displays in an outdoors one. We will return to this in episode 3. While working in such unique settings, there are potentially many different ways to view a performance for an audience member. How to work with what an audience can see is critical to the showing of your work. We will return to this in episode 4. In site-specific work, there is an even longer list of things to keep in mind when it comes to the safety of all of your performers, audience members, and crew. It means being aware of any object that could break or injure someone is pointed out and either kept away from people, guarded by someone, or removed from the space. In short, there is a lot to keep in mind when it comes to safety, and we'll try to mention as many of these as possible in our safety zone, but always remember to double check.
In short, with site-specific works, we get to interact with the site itself, which ends up becoming a character on its own, creating these amazing works that often cannot be recreated. We get to experiment with placement of the audience and learn to work with other challenges that are thrown our way. We hope that you stay with us and learn more about site-specific works. In the next episode, we'll be talking about site-inspired movement, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.